What's up, y'all? I actually started recording this earlier, but some information popped up that y'all didn't need to see anyway. So yeah, the Pixel 3 came out, and the leaks and everything, the renders were all correct. It has a big old notch on the 3XL, and it has dual cameras, and it has this and it has that. But a lot of these reviewers, man, a lot of these tech reviewers, I left a comment on Dave 2D's post the other day. Like, a lot of these reviewers always give Google leeway when it comes to the features and their upgrades and all that. A lot of reviewers told people not to go and buy the Note 8 because they felt it wasn't a substantial upgrade. But the Note 8's upgrade is far more of an upgrade over the Note 9 rather. The Note 9 is a far bigger upgrade over the Note 8 than the Pixels are of their predecessors. And the XL, the 3XL has a very unsightly large notch, even though it shouldn't. A lot of people try and justify that because of the dual cameras, but the smaller one has dual cameras too, if I'm not mistaken, and the notch isn't that huge on that one. So yeah, and there are other phones with dual cameras up front that don't have such big notches. So it's just bad design. A notch in and of itself is just bad design. It's just like you want to give a full screen experience, but you can't. So instead of putting a bezel there, you put a notch there. And in a lot of implementations, all it does is hinder the viewing experience of the device and thereby defeats the purpose. That's poor design. Some companies can get away with it, like Apple. Apple can get away with it because Apple, it's the walled garden. It is what it is. If people who are invested into iPhones don't really have much of a choice if they want the latest and greatest, because that's all there is. So if you're investing in an Apple ecosystem, you really don't have much of a choice. But whereas with Android, there are a lot of options out there, and people don't give notches. And the annoying part about notches is the fact that in software, you can enable settings in a lot of these phones to hide the notch. Why hide the notch if it was a good design choice? I it's just, the reason why everybody's doing it is to just take that Apple aesthetic and misguidedly think that it's going to translate into better sales, which isn't the case. A notch is just bad design. Apple is just nonchalant when it comes to their horrible design choices, and they have the leeway to do all of that because it's Apple. They're tried and tested. If there were 100,000 defective iPhones today, it wouldn't be as big of a problem as 14 exploding Note 7s was for Samsung. So yeah. So one of the things I really dislike about the Pixel phones is how the reviewers refuse to accept the fact that this is a very, very minor upgrade, except for a few reviewers who have actually come out to say it is. It has a newer processor, but it has the same amount of RAM, which is 4 gigs. And I think the Pixel 2 had 3, if I'm mistaken. I don't remember, but the 2XL had 4 gigs of RAM, and these both have 4 gigs of RAM now. They have, I don't know if, let's check the batteries. So let's go to GSM specs. I'm going to GSM Arena and check that out. So, let's see, 5.5 inch 1080p display, 12 megapixel camera, 2915. That's almost a 3000 milliamp hour battery. We'll see how it translates into battery life. And I hope this year nobody starts with that. Oh, it's stock, so specs don't matter. Bullshit. No, no. MKBHD came out and talked about how his Pixel was lagging, and a lot of people had to come out and admit that their Pixels were lagging. Lag happens when there's usually bad optimizations, and then from the hardware side, usually when there's not enough RAM to manage a lot of processes that are going on at the same time. So 4 gigs of RAM this year, probably not a good idea. People are like, what are you going to use? I remember one person was like, what are you going to use 8 gigs of RAM for in a phone, or 10 gigs of RAM? When it comes to the computing, which I do professionally, uh, RAM is indispensable. It is necessary for good performance. Without good amount of RAM, you will run into issues when you run a whole bunch of processes. So when it comes to phones, you have a whole bunch of things working at the same time, and that's why. And how Android manages these processes is different than with Apple. With Apple, a lot of apps don't really have access to the core like resources of the phone, so a lot of things don't run in the background as much as with Android. So a lot of background processes are not really as active as with Android, because with Android they have what's called, they have a deeper, you have a deeper sense of control, and with that comes more embedded what's called, they're more embedded into the software. You understand what I'm saying? There's nothing affecting the UI or doing this or that with the iPhones. It's a straightforward experience. So background processes, a lot of them aren't as active. That's why there's better battery life and better RAM management, because in the background, not a lot of things are happening in the same way as with an Android phone. You get what I mean? That's why they can get away with less RAM and then less battery. You understand what I mean? But even there's only so much that can be done. So when you really look at last year, RAM management wasn't the best on iPhones last year, because at the end of the day, with the advancements in hardware, there's also advancements in software. So software will reach a bottleneck, and it needs more hardware to compensate for the lack of power. Last year there was a whole bunch of problems with the Pixels that went unaddressed, and anybody with eyes could realize that the Pixel phones, right, had average hardware with extraordinary software in the beginning, but the software started getting bogged down because the hardware at it wasn't where it needed to be. You get what I mean? It wasn't where it needed to be. So I would say, like, the RAM, we'll see. After all, there might be something that Google is doing behind the scenes that may make it a better experience in the long run. And then there were people who said they didn't notice any lag. I doubt it, but hey, who am I to say anything? So apart from that, there's is basically better screens, new cameras. So this is a social media phone because it's better cameras. If you take a lot of pictures, you probably want to buy it. And I don't take that many pictures on my phone, unless it's of phone numbers and other stuff. So the whole Pixel thing, right? I wish they would give all manufacturers the same treatment. If any other manufacturer came out with these mediocre upgrades, I think the tech community on YouTube would probably skewer them. Remember when HTC came out, I think, with the U11, and it had the squeeze feature and everybody called it trash? End of the year, Pixel comes out with the squeeze feature that's non-remappable, by the way, and all of a sudden it's the best feature ever. I use it all the time. Right. Okay. The Pixel phones, nobody's shitting on the Pixel phones. Nobody thinks that, but they start at $700. they have less storage than the Note 9 does. Less storage. That should tell you something. They have less storage and the same amount of RAM as last year. It's non-expandable storage. They have no headphone jack, but at least they come with earbuds in the box this time around. So there's that. If I'm being honest, I think it's a lackluster upgrade, and I feel like the community is just ignoring it because it's Google. So they can get away with doing this kind of stuff because the technical community is not going to hold them to task. But sales are sales, and their sales already are lackluster. The last Pixel sold around 2 million, between 2 and 5 million, if I quite remember. And the ones before that sold barely 2 million. So sales are sales. Demand is demand. The camera is what's going to really attract a lot of people to the Pixel devices this year around. And the features do seem kind of good. There's night sight and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, is that enough to actually make people want to go out and then buy a Pixel? Let's be honest about it. To me, I feel the one thing I really do feel that I like about Pixel phones and iPhones is the longevity and the promise of more than 2 years worth of upgrades. But at the end of the day, for most people in the developing world and even some other places I've been in my life, 2 years, by 2 years, you probably would have changed your phone unless you really like it. So at top 3 years tops, unless you're a person who really doesn't give a shit about technology. But usually those people I find are people who use 3310 or something. So yeah, I don't know. I can't call it now, but the Razer phone at least is looking promising. That's a nice shot. They intentionally took a shot right over there for a particular reason. I'm not gonna say nothing though. Yeah. So the Razer phone, I don't know. I'm wondering what happened to the years where like the Qualcomm would have like an extra step better processor in the end of the year. What happened to all that? I don't know, but I'm still rocking my Note 9. Battery life on the Note 9 was something I really wanted to focus on, and if you've seen those videos, you can see that the battery life is good. Not as good as the Vivo Nex S, but really good nonetheless. We'll see. So this is more or less a incoherent rant that I just decided to have, and basically a conversation starter. So if you have any suggestions, any ideas, what do you think about the Pixel phones? And then I didn't really get into my thoughts of the Razer phone, but I think a Razer phone is a better choice right now from the optics than a Pixel phone. But that's just me. So yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments. I know a lot of people who like Pixel phones are gonna start sending messages about this and that, and stock Android that those days are gone. It doesn't really matter anymore. All right, see you in the next one.